This is the MochaFootball.com.
The MochaFootball.com.
This is the MochaFootball.com weekly podcast. Everybody, this is the last week of the regular season. This is the start of the real stuff. Teams are going to start getting into gear, start making that push for the ring, man. How do you feel about right now, Damon, after all this time? It feels like August was just 2 or 3 days ago, and now we're here. How do you feel about the season and going forward?
I'm still as excited as I was in the preseason. It was very interesting to see how the season played out. A lot of things went as expected. There were some surprises. Some teams performed up to our expectations. Other teams fell by the wayside. Some teams came out of nowhere. So it's still very, very exciting, especially now that we're coming into week 10. There's still some teams fighting for playoff spots. Others are still fighting for home field advantage, or at least 1 or 2 home games in the playoffs. Other teams, they're just looking to end their season on a high note.
Right.
Regardless, I expect every single team in the county, I don't expect any of them to phone it in.
Right, right.
They're all playing for something.
Right.
What that something is different for each team, but everybody's playing for something. It's nothing more than just pride.
Right.
You definitely want to end the season on a low note, especially if you're a senior.
Yep.
But yeah, if we want to get specific, Sherwood, Damascus, Quince Orchard, they all 3 teams, for all intents and purposes, lived up to our expectations on what we thought they were going to do on the season.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of teams, Paint Branch and Northwest, still fell slightly short of our expectations, but not by much. They're still 2 very, very good squads, both of which may be going to the playoffs. Northwest is. Paint Branch is still to be determined.
Right.
Our surprise teams, unfortunately, one of them, Einstein, didn't live up to our expectations, but the other potential surprise team, Richard Montgomery, exceeded our expectations.
Yep.
Looking to close out the season with a 9-1 record. And then there was some out-and-out left field surprises, i.e. Wheaton.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought going into week 10, not only has the Wheaton Knights locked up a playoff spot, but they're playing for a couple of home field games if possible.
Right.
That nobody saw coming.
Right.
And
right.
then, as equally as surprising, Magruder and Rockville, despite their record, are still in the playoff hunt.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things going on coming into this final week of the season. Yeah, everybody's still playing for something. Even though Quince Orchard and Damascus have locked up their playoff berth, now they're literally fighting for that number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
For Damascus, they're looking at possible home field advantage throughout the playoffs if they can close out Blair this Friday.
Right.
Quince Orchard is at least fighting for 2 home games. A loss could potentially drop them to the 2nd seed.
Right.
Sherwood, things are still up, and even though they're 9-0 on the field, 8-1 on the record books, things are still a little shaky in their region of 4A North.
Absolutely.
So they definitely want to close on a high note.
Right.
And the same for the other teams, Northwest, Richard Montgomery. Yeah, they're all looking to at least get 1 home game, if possible. So yeah, obviously by the tone of my voice and what I just said, I'm extremely excited going into Week 10. And, yeah, even more so, I just can't wait to the playoffs begin because that's a whole different ball game.
Talking about whole different ball games, Seneca and Damascus definitely playing each other was a whole different ball game than what they've been used to the last few weeks. Seneca and Damascus, both of them basically had, I'll say, 4 or 5 bye weeks, de facto bye weeks, until they faced off last week on Friday. That crowd was packed. Honestly, it's one of the better crowds I've seen this year. That Damascus brought a lot of people to the game. Obviously, Seneca was out there 30, 40 minutes before the game. The place was hyped, and you could feel the energy. It was a real good atmosphere and everything like that. I feel like Damascus really, the score was 21-3, and that would indicate that it wasn't a blowout, but at the same time, there was no point when I was watching the game that I felt like Damascus was going to lose the game. Last night they unveiled the whole college football playoff thing, and they were talking about some of the criteria that they use to determine the great teams, and one of the criteria was game control. And that's the best way I can really describe what Damascus did to Seneca, was really they just controlled the game from top to bottom. There was never a point where you were like, wow, Seneca could have this thing. If you really looked at the score, time, possessions, things like that, that would indicate to you that Seneca was right there. They could have made a move, but it just never felt like that. It just never felt like there was a time where Seneca could make a move and win the game. You got to attribute that to the great Jake Funk. Again, having over 200 yards rushing and doing what he did, 40 carries this time. I was joking around with people. He only played about four full games this whole season. If you want to factor in, he only played a few halves of most of the games that he played in, other than the QO game up to that point. And I was joking with people, look, Damascus coaches are saying, hey, we're gonna get 4 games worth of carries in right now, and just get it done like that. But yeah, he told that rock around 40 times. It was clear that Damascus was not playing around. It's clear that he knew what they wanted to do. That they wanted to establish the ground game. Marcus Vincent also added a new dynamic. I mean, it's very, very hard to deal with a Damascus team that can, with a guy like Jake Funk, and then I'll toss it out to Marcus Vincent and let him do his thing. I thought Damascus was solid all across the board. Now, I will say this, Seneca did have some key drops I feel like led to their demise. They had a few early on in the game that I think that would have swung momentum in their favor. And then, of course, I think everybody remembers the one late. They were trying to come back and make it a game. I believe they would have made it like a 2-possession game or 1-possession game. I forgot what it would have been. There was a big drop. I mean, it was going to be a tough catch, but the kid had the ball in his hands and obviously he fell through. Seneca, I believe, really played well on defense. I felt like while Jake had a good game, they made him work for everything that he had, and Seneca can hit. And anybody that watched Seneca this year, they will tell you they hit, and they hit you hard. They're smaller than most teams, but they can hit you hard. Their offense is a work in progress, in my opinion. Right now, I feel like they have to find an identity on offense. They have talent, but I just think that the identity is lacking. When you go and you play a Damascus, you know what you're going to get. Sherwood, you kind of know what you're going to get. QO, you know what you're going to get right now. Right now with Seneca, offensively, they don't really have that identity where you know what you're going to get from them. Still really talented, still really good, but I feel like they need that one thing that they can hang their hat on in the playoffs. They can develop that. I think they're going to get into the lab, and I think that they saw the same thing, and I think that they're going to try to work around that. What was your take on the result, Damon, and everything that went on with it? And do you think that Seneca is in trouble or any at all? And do you think that Damascus, is there anything that's concerning to you about Damascus, whether it's the variety in which they score, anything at all? And how does this bowl going forward in the playoffs?
Before I get to your question, just want to piggyback off of what you said about the atmosphere and the crowd in Germantown last Friday. As you mentioned, the crowd was there super magnitude of the rivalry between the Swarming Hornets and Screaming Eagles. Also of note, this is the last game being played between Damascus versus Seneca Valley at the current field, since Seneca Valley is going to be going through some renovations. That field will no longer be played on, which is it's sad, but
Right.
it's a sign of the times. Seneca Valley is literally bursting at the seams, so
Right.
it's time to rebuild. So Death Valley, as they like to call it, is gonna shut down. I do believe they'll probably keep the same name, but it won't be the same field. But we're
Right.
literally talking 40 years worth of football being played on that field.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so I hope after this Friday's game that a few of the players and alumni and faculty go out and get a piece of grass or something, just a small memento of the original field, because assuming that Seneca ends up playing a playoff game this Friday, fittingly taking on their longtime rival Gaithersburg.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the last regular season game at Death Valley.
Oh yeah, that's very fitting. Very fitting. Very fitting.
Yes, it is very fitting. The schedule couldn't have worked out any better
Right.
than having those two long-time rivalries turn out the lights at that field.
Right.
Now, back to the game of the week last week. Yeah, like you mentioned, it was pretty much apparent after the first couple of drives how this game may end up. I mean, on offense, just right off the gate, Jake Funk went for a 30-plus yard run.
Right.
And that was followed up by the screen pass to Marcus Vinson, who took it 40-plus yards for the first score of the game. And then after that, Damascus defense kicked into high gear. I mean, outside of that first drive where Seneca got into field goal territory, it never really felt like they could get much more going until like later on in the I do believe it was late third, early fourth quarter.
Right.
But answer your questions, I'm not too concerned with Damascus's offense and the way they go about things. I think obviously Funk's going to be the focus. He's going to get the majority of the workload. But I do believe with some of the new pieces that they've added to the offense, teams are going to have to honor those. Stay honest.
Right.
I mean, they can try to overload on Funk, but if they do, I do believe Marcus Vinson and Julian Kennard can at least keep drives alive on their own.
Right.
They're still going to need to lean on Funk for the tough yardage and things that you have to get, like on third down or fourth and goal or something like that. But in between, on the way down to the red zone, Kennard and Vincent, I do believe Damascus can count on to keep the ball moving. With that being said, I'm totally looking ahead, like a month ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think they will have to add in some wrinkles if they have what I expect to be a rematch with Franklin at M&T Bank. But
Right.
that's super far ahead. If we're only focusing on this week, I fully expect them to handle Blair. I'm going with a comfortable victory for Damascus, 35-14, which should lock up home field advantage for Damascus. And if everything holds as the way it is, they should be hosting the Oakdale Bears the following Friday.
It should be a good game.
It should be a good game. It'll be a test for Damascus, but I do believe they will be the favorites in that game. they might throw in a few extra things, especially if it's Seneca Valley and they're seeing them for a second time. Now, speaking of which, I am concerned about Seneca Valley's offense, as you mentioned. Unfortunately, with the way the schedule worked out in 3A, we really didn't see how that offense would really perform outside of the Northwest game in week 2. At the time, it just looked like your typical defensive battle where, there were some times the offense looked good, but at the time I think most of us gave that was a result of Northwest's defense. But now, looking at that game and this game, yeah, things are a little bit clear that the Eagles still need to work a few things out. And hopefully in between this week when they take on Gaithersburg, a game I do believe Seneca will win. I'm going with the score of 24-14 for the Screaming Eagle. But heading into the playoffs, especially if they're what we're expecting to be an away game at Linganore, in between now and then, they're going to have to work out a few things if they want to come out with a victory and what could be another rematch with Damascus.
Moving on to this week, we have, as you know, Damon, we have a lot of playoff situations and things like that, a lot of things to be determined. But one of the most interesting, and this has been chronicled throughout the season, the Watkins Mill, Wheaton, Magruder, Rockville, Blake drama. It's been like as the world turns, It's been one of those kind of dramas, man. Watkins Mill has a chance to get into the playoffs for the first time in a while. Wheaton has already locked up a playoff spot, and Magruder has a chance now. A lot of and we just got the information that Blake has forfeited 2 of its wins, and that in turn, I believe, gave Wheaton a win. That locked it up, and that was just a new plot twist in the whole thing. Because for a while, it was understood that Blake was still in the running, So now Magruder, is still in it. You have Watkins Mill that's still in it. You have Rockville that's still in it. This coming week, we have a huge game between Watkins Mill and Wheaton, and if it turns out that Wheaton can win, what we're looking at is a situation where Wheaton could possibly have 2 home playoff games, and for Watkins Mill, if they win, they could possibly get up to the 3, maybe even the 2 seed, and they could have a home playoff game too. So it's all up in the air. It's all right there for both teams. So this is going to be a tightly fought game. Both teams want to win this game bad for different reasons and everything like that. What do you think about this game going in, Damon, and everything that's surrounding it?
I'm extremely excited for this game. I know there's some naysayers out there just because of the way the regional playoffs are structured in Maryland. No matter what you're going to do, you're going to end up with a situation like this from time to time. But it is what it is. And with the combination of the forfeits and the way that the 3A South went this year, Watkins Mill, Wheaton, and Magruder, and even Rockville has an outside chance of getting into the playoffs. Those 4 teams are playing this Friday. I'm especially excited for the Wheaton Watkins Mill matchup because they both feature two of my favorite and two of the more underrated players in the county. That being Markel Grant for Watkins Mill and Dominic Sims for Wheaton. The Blake forfeit has injected new life into 4 teams in this county. The crazy thing is, I do believe if Watkins Mill pulls off the win at Wheaton, then they're going to turn right around and play each other again the following week in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
So this could be round 1.
Right.
I do believe in order for Magruder to get in, actually I have no idea how Magruder gets in, but I know it involves Magruder has to win to get in, and they'll need some help for the rest of the bonus points to kick in.
Right.
But regardless, all of these teams have something very, very big to play for this Friday. Matter of fact, the Wheaton Watkins Mill game is so big, it's a MocoFootball.com game of the week this year for probably the first time in the history of MocoFootball.com. I know for sure in the history of this podcast, Wheaton and Watkins Mill are the game of the week participants. So congratulations to you guys. I hope the stands are packed and full this Friday at Wheaton. It's been a long time since there's been a huge game at Wheaton. Probably almost 20 years, going back to the 90s, to the state championship teams for Wheaton. So congratulations to all those kids and the coaching staff. I know you guys work hard, and my hat's off to you guys. I hope it's a good game, and wish you guys luck in the playoffs.
The game this week that a lot of people are going to be paying attention to is a game that features 2 Elite Six teams. Obviously Paint Branch had a tough outing versus Sherwood 2 weeks ago, but they have an opportunity still to make the playoffs if they can get over the Viz and Quince Orchard Cougars, who are coming in 8-1. They haven't lost since the opening day matchup versus Damascus, who is the number 1 team in the county right now. Paint Branch, obviously, they took a hit in the mouth versus Sherwood. Obviously, they wanted to win that game bad for a multitude of reasons, but they can still attain everything that they want, possibly get a rematch versus Sherwood in the playoffs. I think that they definitely want that more than anything else. They definitely want to see if they can get a rematch and try to get, try to avenge that loss. I think that the key is going to be if QO can generate the kind of pressure that Sherwood was able to generate. I think Paint Branch is going to be in really, really big trouble, right? Paint Branch has to find a way to protect Amani Ceballos. Give him the time to go downfield because they love to run deep seam routes and things like that. They have to have the time to run it though. He can't have guys coming in his face, 2 steps into his drop. They need to find a way to protect him, and they also need to find a way to have some kind of inside running game. That was a glaring deficiency versus Sherwood. They weren't able to establish a running game at all versus Sherwood. They're going to have to find a way to run the ball versus Quince Orchard, or you're going to be looking at some of those quick 3 and outs and having Beander and Barlow on the field. That's not going to be a good thing, especially after seeing what Travis Levy did to them 2 games before. That old line for QO is big. They're physical. I look for QO to lean on Paint Branch. Now Paint Branch can cause problems because Paint Branch can go 5 wide and they can match up with anybody, right? And they can cause problems. Obviously, their linebacking core is still one of the tops in this area. Theoretically, one would think that QO should be running into Paint Branch's strength. But obviously, after what Travis Levy did to them last week, that's kind of in question right now. But I still think that Paint Branch is confident in their ability to stop the run. So I think that they feel good about this game, better than what most people think about it. but still, this is going to be a daunting task for them. I think Paint Branch is going to come out and play with their hearts. I think this is going to be one of those games that there's going to be a lot of big hits. There's going to be a lot of physical play, and I can't wait to see this game because there's going to be a lot of great athletes. Dane, what do you think about this game, and how do you see it going?
Like you mentioned, Northwest is traveling to Paint Branch this Friday, and unfortunately for Paint Branch, they're in that position where, for all intents and purposes, they need this win in order to get into the playoffs. 4A North is a tough region this year. You got some undefeated teams and a log jam of 9-1 and 8-2 teams.
Right.
So no matter what happens, there's going to be a quality team sitting at home in that region.
Right.
So that alone is going to give Paint Branch a little extra incentive to come out swinging for this game.
Right.
They're going to have to be clicking on all cylinders to pull off this upset. Not only is the offense going to have to put up some points in a hurry, the more daunting task is on the shoulders of the Paint Branch defense. It's up to them to stop the QO running attack with the three-headed monster of Barlow, Beender, and Kim.
Right.
That's basically what it's going to come down to. And as you mentioned, in order for the Paint Branch offense to put up those points, they have to establish a running game. Hockaday and Content are going to be counted on to put that into motion. Now the question is, can they do enough to open up the passing attack? Because if Paint Branch just comes out ignoring the run, which there's no chance they're going to do that, then this is going to be a long game.
Right.
Basically, you got to keep Quince Orchard's defense honest, and that's going to be a tough task because I expect the QO line to be pressing hard. I see QO coming out on top in this matchup, and I'm leaning toward a 32-14 score. And then after that, it's just a whole bunch of scoreboard watching for Paint Branch to see if they can slide in with the 8-2 record.
I didn't even know this, but we found out, after, even if they win this game, they still need a little bit of help to get in.
Correct. Correct.
So I mean, yeah, they're just going to be scoreboard watching either way. But, well, that's about all the time we have for today. Damon, is there anything else, anybody else, any other games that you want to shout out before we, get out of here?
Yeah, there's one more game. Every team in Montgomery County has tasted the sweet nectar of victory, except for the one team, the Kennedy Cavaliers.
Oh, yeah.
More than any other game this year, this is one that Kennedy has a legitimate chance to win. And that's when they travel down the road to Northwood Gladiator. I'm really pulling for Kennedy. I really, really want the kids and the staff to have a payoff to all their hard work. That program's gone through a lot this year, but the staff and the kids have veered, so it would be really nice if they could get a victory. So yeah, go Cavaliers. Good luck this Friday.
Yeah.
And as usual, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter at Nomad Anderson or shoot me a message on the message board at mocofootball.com.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Shout out to Lil Darryl Wills. Got his first start last week versus Sherwood for Kennedy. And, he's a promising young quarterback for them. He was doing big things on the JV. Decided to pull him up last week, and you know, Sherwood did their thing versus Kennedy, but he showed some flashes, and it'll be a good thing. They have a sophomore starting quarterback. I'm talking about Kennedy has a sophomore starting quarterback. They have some pieces. It'll be a good thing to end the season with a win. Go in knowing that a lot of those kids are going to come back next year and have something to really train for and thinking about next season. So, absolutely, that's a good call, Damon. And, you know, that, like I said, that's all the time we have, and see you next week.